Well, it's good to see you though, man. It's like I said, it's been way too long though. I'm excited about what you're doing, so it's good to finally connect.
Yeah, man, it's been good. It was last time we saw each other, we were freaking pumping weights in Maine.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That what was that? It was probably like what 3 4 months ago or so. You came up here to talk with Pete.
Yep. Origin guys, which is totally rad. Those guys are just like a rocket ship.
It's pretty amazing what they're doing, man. Like I
Yeah.
was actually really glad to be able to connect you guys because I knew as soon as I would connect you guys, like I knew the synergy that would be there and come from that. So it's cool to
Well,
see what you guys are
I
doing.
mean, you're a good people person, and I mean, Pete is like salt of the earth. So I
No
mean, I
doubt.
love that, and it's kind of weird, like we did at Under Armour, we started all of our manufacturing and made in USA. And then eventually, you got to move offshore to like keep up with like these huge production numbers. But, it never really felt good. And so to see a company like that just saying, you know what, we're only doing made in the United States. And we're going to buck the trend because, yeah, there's cheaper stuff other places. So my respect level for those guys was super high and a little bit jealous that we didn't do that, back in my UA days.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I actually think too they're leading the charge because I see this being and you know what also is I think they got out ahead of the curve that they didn't even realize existed or didn't know was
Yeah.
coming down the pike just because of the whole coronavirus fallout and the things with China and just the globalization of economies to begin with. I think there's a little bit of bad taste in Americans' mouths for that. So they got ahead of a curve that I'm not sure they knew even existed.
Yeah. It's funny. It's interesting, right? That's really perceptive. They basically had a belief that led to something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's like what belief is.
Right.
And
Right.
it doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be about, like dreaming about money for your better life for your kids. I mean, it could just be like a belief in what you want to do for your business.
Yeah, I actually feel very similar to that with Order of Man, and people say this. So this is actually a really good point. They'll say, "Oh man, you entered the market, quote unquote, entered the market in whatever space you did at just the right time." I'm like, yeah, maybe, but it wasn't planned. I think the reason you believe that that's the case is because of, like you said, the belief, the conviction, and then working my ass off over 5 years. And now it looks like I had some sort of grand strategy or plan when in all reality, it's played out this way because of the work and the effort and the belief.
Yeah, it's like which one comes first. And I think a lot of people that have a weak mind or a weak way of thinking, it's easy for them to discount it by saying, "Oh, you did this at the perfect time." So it's like almost on them that they're just discounting it, but they can't recognize whatever that strong belief or that discipline or whatever that drive is. They don't, Ryan, they don't fucking recognize it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's funny. And I tell people this a lot. It's like, don't ever discount what somebody's experiencing, like the positive results people are experiencing. Because my thought is if you start discounting it, even if there's some level of truth to your discounting it, like they were fortunate or they hit something at the right time or they made a connection or whatever. If you discount it, then what you're saying is that you're just waiting for your ship to come in. Like it's just some sort of fortunate event and you don't have to work as hard as maybe you ought to because the stars are just going to align at some point and just miraculously bestow your blessings upon you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good like when you say that, I think of Cam, right? So yeah, he has this thing. It's like, yeah, you may get lucky, yeah, the universe may align, but like that doesn't really change why or how he does it.
Right.
Yeah,
And
like
and you can
he
capitalize on
almost
those
doesn't.
opportunities.
He almost doesn't want the universe to align. He wants the struggle to be harder. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes, because I know you've put a lot into Order of Man, and we've talked over the year here or so that we've been friends, or almost two now. And it's like I don't think people want to understand. It's hard, and it's actually makes it fun. Problem solving is fun. If at Under Armour, Or what I'm doing now, I've never been a brewer. You know, I'm doing craft beer. I've never done it before. I didn't grow up. My dad didn't grow up in it. I've never been around it in my life. It's hard. And so it's almost like that equal resistance has an equal payback. And yeah, okay, it's nice when the market aligns, the universe gives you the perfect timing. That definitely feels good because you work hard, but it doesn't really drive you. It feels good like, oh, someone recognized like, hey, this is good timing, and you seem to come along and you seem to be smart to recognize a market opportunity. That's not really why you're doing it. You're doing it because you're trying to like you're like problem solving down to like the millionth degree. And that's what I like. And that's where that struggle is. That's where Cam comes in. He loves the struggle. So like, it's been hard for you. We talked about like, maybe membership wasn't where you wanted it to be, or maybe you were getting the wrong people, or it's like, yeah, those are problems to solve. You know, that to me is fun. I like that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that perspective, because I think what most people do is they see a problem as solely an obstacle. And let's be real, it is an obstacle, right? It is something that, but an obstacle is meant, it's like a hurdle, right? Like it's meant to be overcome. You put those hurdles so you can jump over them and see how good you are at jumping over them.
So while we were at Under Armour, I ran the footwear division, and to like build some camaraderie sometimes, a couple of the guys came out with this idea. It's like, let's get the whole footwear group to do a Tough Mudder. And that was back in the day when Tough Mudders were kind of like really popular. Yeah. So when you say the obstacles, we did these Tough Mudders. You know, I'm not really a great runner anymore, you know, so I think they're like 13, 14 miles, but they got a lot of obstacles and they're fun and it's hard.
Right.
Did we get to the wall, this really cool wall, and go around it?
No, of course not.
No, I signed up for the Tough Mudder, but I'm not going to do this wall. You know, like, fuck that. Wall looks really big, man. And when I was really heavy on Instagram, I posted a picture of a guy who's missing one leg and one arm who climbed the wall at Tough Mudder. I think you may have seen it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people probably watching this know who that guy's is. He's badass. But in life, do you go around the obstacles?
No.
You go freaking right at them, and you go you go over them. And you know what? A couple buddies with me, they didn't get over the wall the first time. They failed. And they ran back, and they ran at it again. And I saw it, and I put my arm down so they could get it. And, like, we got over the wall. Right. So it's like sometimes you actually can't get over it. Sometimes you need people. Sometimes you need some knowledge. Maybe you need new technology. Maybe you need help, support. So, but to me, you never go around the wall.
Yeah, you still deal with, I mean, what value is there if we'll just take it on this analogy of the Tough Mudder. So you finish the race and you get to the finish line and they give you your little medal, but isn't it cheapened?
Oh yeah, dude, it's worthless.
I mean, some people would probably think they actually did it, but like I look at it and I'm like, that means less than what it could have meant.
I would have rather sat there all fucking day at that wall and it got dark and they came and said, I failed the race, but I never went around that wall. And they're like, what did Kip do? Dude, he stood at that wall for like 16 hours. He couldn't get over it. Yeah.
Right. That's the point.
Feels
like, get better, improve.
Cheap metal. Yeah.
That's what I think. But you know what? People want the easy path. You know, they're always looking for the easy route. They want the result without the effort. And I've talked about it in the context of like the natural man, right? We're lazy, we're immediate gratification, we'll lie, we'll cheat, we'll steal.
Yeah, well, I know that we've talked about this before, and we've talked about a product of your society, and we've talked about when you grow up in certain environments. And I disagree with you on that a little bit. And what I would say is we are a product of the comfort that the society that we're in has propagated. We are in a consumer society. We are in a consumerism mentality. Buy things to help me be comfort. Have things that make me feel good about myself. So is it really man's natural predisposition, or is it really this phase that man is in with this consumer society. So let's rewind just 100 years, 150 years. I mean, in the scheme of things, dinosaurs were 280 million years ago. We're only talking 100 years ago. Was the prevalence of laziness and comfort as high as it is today? I don't think it was.
No, because I think the problems were much greater than they are today, right? Like
Yeah, so your environment was different.
Totally. Yeah, because now, I mean, we talk about tough mudders. We have to manufacture hardship.
Yeah, right.
Like we have to make shit up to worry about because we don't have enough real things to worry about. Like
it's because everything's handed to us.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I agree. I agree with what you're saying, and I'm kind of rethinking this now because if you have to stay alive, like your natural man isn't going to be like, nope, don't want to make that fire. Nope, don't want to go hunt that woolly mammoth. Like you're going to get your ass out there and do it.
That's what I'm talking about. And so I think there's like some sort of evolutional left turn at Albuquerque that we're going through with consumerism. And I don't believe it's a positive thing for man. I don't think it's a positive thing for Mother Earth. So, I think we're waking up to that, but it's really slow. It's really slow. And you see people like Goggins and Cam and listen to all these people that Rogan has. And there's like this edge of people that are choosing a different path. And, you're starting something hard and you're pushing yourself. But honestly, those percentages of the population are small. So
yeah,
we're at the beginning stage of like revitalizing whether it's to be a man or whether it's to be a human or whether it is to what it's to live on Mother Earth. We can't just consume Mother Earth. She won't be here.
How does the brewery fall into this though? Because you're talking about consumerism, you're talking about capitalism, and then you juxtapose that with Mother Nature and our responsibility and obligation. So like, where is the balance between okay, well I'm of this world, like I'm going to consume, obviously, I'm going to produce things that are going to be valuable to other people, and then balancing that with this other side of things that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I mean, for me specifically, I'm a realist. Like, I'm not going to sit here and like tell you the world's going to revolt back to like Neanderthal living.
Of course, sure.
And I have kids, and I want to raise my kids. And what I chose with the brewery, Big Truck Brewery, is we grew hops for 4.5 years. Right? We're going to use all our own ingredients to give flavor and taste. So we're trying to vertically control what goes into our products and not propagate this idea that, we're just going to sell a bunch of beer and we're going to order and like hops can ship to our door the next day and we can change hops all the time and we can do whatever. Like we have 17,000 plants. We're cultivating a farm in a new way using technology. We have a high intensity irrigation system. We have a very complex trellis. So I'm like using the latest thinking to try to get the ground to provide a really quality product. Now we're testing growing barley. We think we're going to have like our own barley, malted barley into our products too. So like it's more about controlling and not just being of the consumerism that I'm just trying to like mass produce some beer so I can sell some beer. And you know what? I'm not a big drinker and I didn't drink for a long, long time. I'll have 1 or 2 beers now. I want to show the craft. It is really cool. And it's been around a long, long time. And there's actually a lot of beneficial things hops can provide, beer can provide in terms of health. If you're drinking too many, that ain't good. If you're drinking too much of anything, that ain't good. If all you do is drink orange juice, that ain't good. So I'm a big proponent of be healthy, moderate, work your ass off. Like I'm talking about having like a beer after I work out in the evening. Like I'm not running a bar.
Right.
But you're right. Mother Earth can only sustain a certain thing. And so I'm like walking the line of consumerism, but I'm trying to do it in a way that I show my kids a craft. But I'm showing them from beginning to end by growing the hops and brewing the beer. So is that my way of justifying it? Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I don't know if it's, you say justification as with like a negative connotation. I don't think that's the case. I think, and this is what I don't think a lot of people understand, is that you being a capitalist, for example, and believing in production and believing in the economy, it doesn't have to be at odds with the other things that you believe. You can find a way to give back. Like I think about what you're doing, and you think about farming, and you think about working the land, and you think this is what men did with their boys and girls 150 years ago. You think about getting your kids involved. You think about getting community members involved. You think about
Oh yeah, for sure.
hiring people so that they can
Oh yeah.
put food on their family's table. Like these things are correlated. They can help each other. The missions aren't at odds with each other, and I think a lot of people believe they are.
No, yeah, I think you said that well. I mean, it's a struggle, right? It's like we live in a world where we just have to recognize this is where we're at. And so how do we optimize it, but we still are driven by these like grandiose beliefs? And they sometimes they're at war with where society's at, man.
Oh,
I
quite
do
often.
think I
Absolutely.
think I think being a part of the land and having a surreal experience to understand how to cultivate, Cam talks about, putting food on the table with the animals that he takes. Um, it can happen in a lot of ways like that. And I think people that are disconnected to that concept, it's really hard to have this conversation with them.
It's
And
hard for
we're just talking
people
about
to.
farming.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's take hunting even. It's hard for people to reconcile. For example, you say Mother Earth, Mother Nature with a sense of responsibility and admiration. That's what I hear in your voice. And I know we've had conversations about this, so I know that about you. It would be hard for somebody who didn't understand or wasn't immersed to some degree to reconcile that thought with I'm going to go kill a deer or I'm going to go kill a bear. It's just hard for people to wrap their heads around. How can you care about Mother Nature when you just killed that animal? They don't see the
Well,
entire story.
and so I've struggled with this talking with friends and family that don't come from my background or don't actually understand some of the things that you and I are discussing. And so I've had to like figure out how to have this conversation without getting angry or frustrated or really just try to pull out what they think, and so that they see me listening to them, and in turn they'll listen to me. And I've approached it differently lately, specifically at hunting. I can talk about hunting all the time. Is really we're in a world where we have to manage our health. We don't wake up at a cave and we're going to be fit because we have barely any food and we're going to have to run 10 miles. So we manage our health. We have to manage our education. We have to constantly give ourselves more education to stimulate our brain to learn more. We have to manage that. It's an active. You have to manage wildlife. We're not here anymore on this earth. We cover a significant part of the world. You cannot just say, "Well, let them see how they do." There has to be a management. Now, if you decided not to manage, then you're going to have to live with the consequences. And the consequences could be overpopulation, it could be death, it could be injury. You could have whole species that go extinct or whole species that explode. And so I try to get them to understand management, and I try to talk to people about what are they managing in their life or in their work or in their family actively. And then give them example when they're not managing something well. And look what happens. Look what happens when you don't manage your freaking weight. Look what
Mm-hmm.
happens when you don't manage your drinking. So wildlife, specifically in North America, but also places like Africa, Europe, they've done well only when management is in place.
Hmm.
Now, hey, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, like they didn't need that. It was the natural selection of the world, and the footprint that man had was 100 times less than we have now.
Yeah, I mean, well, but even take what 100, 150 years ago, and you look at the bison of the North American plains, and that wasn't managed well. And look what happened there. I mean, we almost lost that species altogether because it wasn't managed well.
No, I was born in Utah, and like I feel like I have like the West in my blood, and so I did a lot of studying and research, and just to understand how that all happened. And it was consumerism, dude.
Yep. Yeah, good point. Yeah, exactly.
It was consumerism, but it was like not a healthy consumerism. And you had a whole population on the East Coast that was stuck in horrific conditions in cities, doing all kinds of industrialization and these products and goods and services coming from the West, specifically products coming from the buffalo, meat, hides, bones, carvings, sinew, freaking everything. It was consumers and they're buying it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Unmanaged. Where'd that get us? I mean, that's a beautiful animal. It'd be nice to see just a whole part of the United States that had wild. Oh man. Have you read
Lewis awesome? And Clark,
The Undaunted Courage?
I haven't read it.
Oh yeah, it's a good one. It's a Lewis and Clark's expedition across the United States to get kind of the Oregon Trail and then finally make it to the Pacific. But it's documented through stories of people that came in contact with them. And so you're reading a bunch of stories from ship captains, from trappers, from priests, of when they met Lewis and Clark and where they were and what was happening. And then a lot of journal entries from both of those two. It's, if anybody likes to understand the history of the United States, wildlife, biology, it's a book that is like, to me, it was gripping. It's pretty cool.
I'll have to check it out. I actually just started reading this book again. Have you read this? Endurance?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Dude, This book is unbelievable. I started reading it again, and it actually ties into what you're saying, because I look at these men. I think there was 28 of them.
Yeah.
And I look at what these men went through, and I look at Ernest Shackleton and the captain, Frank. I can't remember his last name. And you're talking about management. I use the term stewardship, right? Like you have to be a good steward over your resources and what you have. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be painful. Like there's elements of stewardship, whether you're trying to conserve natural resources and you happen to hunt, there's a little bit of pain every time you kill an animal, right? Like, and it should be that. That shouldn't be like, you shouldn't take pleasure in the death of an animal, right? Now, you enjoy the process, you enjoy the harvest. Sometimes go ahead.
That's a poacher. That's a different type of feeling. People just run around, shoot things for a high. That's not any different than drinking too much alcohol, drugs. There's like a lot of ways people get highs. And yeah, I don't enjoy that first moment of like gutting an animal. Like I don't. But what drives me is I got to prepare that meat quickly and efficiently, But yeah, no, that's an interesting one. Those books too around sacrifice, like if you're not willing to make daily sacrifices, whether it's managing how much food you have to eat so you can last a long time. We don't really have those problems, but so the consumerism give us the comfort. And so the sacrifice is very low compared to maybe what it was a long time ago. And so you just don't have an appreciation for when a sacrifice comes along. Are you willing to do it? Can you be mentally strong enough to handle it? And how long is the sacrifice going to last? Like, I can sacrifice for a little bit, but I hope only a couple hours. How about a couple years, motherfucker?
Right. These guys were on ice for 18 months. I mean, they quite literally, they had to kill their dogs. And their dogs weren't just working dogs. Their dogs were their companions.
Oh, yeah.
They had to kill and eat their dogs. Like, talk about sacrifice, to stay alive. Like, what do we have to sacrifice? Nothing.
Yeah, my dad's a Vietnam vet, and he has a very interesting way of living. He has a very interesting way of being okay with whatever happens. And, I find that very intriguing about him. I love him for it. It's something that I've learned, how to let go of things, how to just be okay. Yeah, it's because he was in war.
Right. Right, exactly.
He's like, this shit's not that important. Death.
That's how I felt when I came back from Iraq, and I wasn't probably nearly to the degree that your father was, but like I came back and I would see people, and I always say, that would get upset at the 16-year-old who got their McDonald's food order wrong. And I'm like, what the hell are you complaining about, dude? Like, so you got pickles on your burger. Peel your pickles off and eat the burger. Like, shut the hell up. It was so and now I've learned to be a little bit more gracious, right? But right when I got back, I was so frustrated with the bullshit that people were worried about.
It's interesting. You said you need to learn to be more gracious. Do you need to learn to be more gracious, or are you just dumbing yourself down for people that need comfort?
I think it could go both ways, and I think it depends on the motive and the relationship,
Yeah,
because
sure.
the way that look,
You
I
don't
don't
want
know
to
what
turn people
somebody's
off.
well, not only that, but I don't know what people are experiencing. Like what's hard for me is different than what's hard for somebody else, and in a lot of ways, I might be tougher than somebody else. And in a lot of ways, I might be weaker than somebody else. Like maybe I'm physically tougher than the single mother who's, never worked a day in her life, but maybe I'm weaker in that I couldn't raise a child on my own and go through what that single mother potentially went through. So I think it's okay to hold people to high expectations, but because you don't want to weaken them or assume that they're weak. But I also think some grace and just some empathetic thinking
Yeah.
is probably pretty important.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, man. You just want to shake people.
Right, because you see it and you know what they're capable of, right? Like I see people, I
Yeah.
go to the gas station, for example, and I see people stocking up on beer and cigarettes and buying lottery tickets, and I'm like, dude, like stop. There's $40 down the drain right there. Let me show you what to do instead of that. But again, I don't know. I don't know their situation. All I can do is
Yeah.
worry about me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I think with Order of Man or with other people that have a more public facing, you know, articulation of their beliefs and what trying to help people, basically try to lead more in the public eye. I was at Under Armour for 21 years and I had lots of people around me. I had some great people and I worked with people. I will definitely say that for now I'm less about leading other people. I'm like a little bit gun shy to it, you know,
What
after
makes you say
being,
that? Why do you feel that way?
yeah, I did it for many, many years. I poured my heart into it. And I don't know, this is going to sound really rude or whatever. I'm like, only the strong survive. If they can't motivate themselves, it ain't my job. So it's
Yeah,
a
I
weird one.
I
It's a
understand.
weird
So
one.
here's my perspective of you, Kip. Just from the outside looking in our little bit of a relationship that we've had over the past couple of years. Like you do lead, right? And so maybe you're not as directly influential for those individuals as you once were because you're not immersed in it, but you do lead from a different perspective, and you've led me. We've had conversations where you've shared insights I've never considered before. When I see what you're doing and how you're living your life and how you're following something that you believe in and taking risks, that to me is leadership. It may not be direct, but the influence you have is there and it is present. It's just a different way of doing it than maybe you were doing it in the past.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I guess it's all by example so I guess it's the shouting from the mountaintops, come along with me, that I've become a little bit jaded to that. Um, and so my circle got small, really small, and then even smaller.
Yeah.
And, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, yeah, and then when I do connect with people who I think are authentic, I seem to have a better time connecting with them because I'm not maintaining this need to have a bunch of people around me following what I'm doing. It's not important to me anymore. So
I
it's a
think
little bit of
what
a balance there.
Yeah. I think what you've done is you've found a way to focus on the things that you care about. And I'm not saying that in a way that's you're being selfish. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you found something that's important to you and you've figured out a way for people to qualify themselves. So, like, for example, if you're beating your head against the wall trying to drag somebody along on this journey and they're just not interested in going, that is a miserable, miserable experience. If, on
Yeah.
the other hand, you're saying, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm passionate about, here's what I'm excited about, and if you want to come, like, let's do it. Like, come with me. And if not, that's fine. Just stay over there. And I think that's the point, even where I'm feeling like I am, is like I don't have a need to like drag you along. If you want to go on the journey, let's do it together. And I'm going to show you what's worked for me and what hasn't worked. And if you're not interested, that's cool too. No judgment. Live your life. And I hope the best for you. I really do. I hope the best for you.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes when people just don't know what they want. And those people too, I don't have time for them. Like I'm jaded. Like figure it out, man. Like it's not my job to help you figure it out. It's not all that. I don't think it's all that complex, to be honest with you. I think because of the comfort and society we're living in, we tend to make things more complex than they need to be. But
have you always known what you want to pursue and chase, or have there been times where you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing?
Yeah, so I suffer from dyslexia, so I tend to learn on a little bit of a different track than most people. So early in life, the way I learned was a little bit different, and so it's visual and it's experiential. And so what I do is I dive into something, and if I don't like it or it doesn't fit with who I am, I self-correct. I'll give you a good example of that. I graduated. I played lacrosse at Maryland. I feel like my dad was in the military. My brother was in the military. My stepfather was in the military. I was like, I want to be in that military world, but I want to do it my way. So I started applying to the FBI, the CIA, the Border Patrol, the NIS, a local sheriff's office. I applied to all kinds of places. And I started taking some tests, some exams. I got my top secret security clearance. I got a unarmed security job at a CIA building just to get in the know. And I immersed myself through experience in that field. I didn't like it. I thought there was a lot of ego. I thought there was a lot of control. I thought there was a lot of people that were in there for the wrong reasons. And again, I had a very limited exposure to it, but the people I did got exposed to turned me off. So I self-corrected. That's when I met my partner, Kevin Plank at Under Armour. And I just went that direction instead. So I learned through this experiential. Now, am I summarizing that whole field as being egotistical or whatever? I'm not. I'm just saying my experience in the early days wasn't healthy and didn't fit me. So I changed. So yeah, that's kind of how I get into something, and I'm like, self-awareness is a pretty good thing. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I know it didn't feel good.
Right. Well, you say self-awareness. I think that's good, but also courage. And I don't know if you would describe it as that, but I think there's a lot of people who know they aren't satisfied with the path they're on, like you were, right? Like, I don't like this. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. And yet they don't have the courage to pursue something different. They just won't go do it because they've got the golden handcuffs, or they've got the career or the pension or the comfort or the mortgage. And so they're like, I got to stay here. And then they're miserable for 40 years.
Yeah. Whether it's a gift or whether it's a flaw, whether it was my upbringing or whether it's my DNA, I don't operate that way. I don't care. I just don't care. I'm not worried about the risk. I don't know why. That's a little bit of a flaw, because it could have a lot of bad consequences. I'm such an independent person. My dad left me when I was young. My parents got divorced. We moved in a military family. Every 2 years, we lived on a new base. Every 2 years, I went to 4 different high schools. I don't question myself. I don't have this huge, I've had doubt in my life. And I would say as I get older, closer to 50, I'm 47 now, turning 48 in October. I would say that doubt has crept more in now, later in life, than it did early in life.
Is that because you've experienced failure? That's what I was going to say. Like, you've experienced it, right? And so it's like, oh, that hurts. Yeah, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, that's it, man. You're only as good as what you remember, and the people that can just forget that. And for many, many years, I was just I never looked back, and I don't really look back well now, but I definitely look back more than I did when I was younger. And so I look back, I'm like, don't do that, Kip, or maybe that's not the right way. And so I doubt myself more.
Hmm.
And that's just something you have to manage. And there's some healthy things there because I do have two small kids. I'm married. I have a business. So, some of the risk things I need to consider. I have employees. So, you know, you have to consider some of those things.
Yeah, I think it's been a bit. You talk about it's a. I can't remember the term you used, but I think the attitude that you have of not having to look back on that so much and not doubting yourself is probably a bit of a blessing and a curse. Some great things in your life have probably come from it, and some pain that could have been avoided has probably
Uh,
come from it too. So you got to like weigh the pros and the cons. Like we don't make the decision in the vacuum and think that hey, if we make the right decision, everything will be perfect. It's like no, even if you make the right decision, stuff is still gonna suck occasionally.
oh yeah, it always sucks. I mean, I've just trying to start a business right now. I mean, I started this concept like when I was growing hops for 3.5, 4 years. And I'm like, we need to get into brewing. I want to see the whole thing come together. And I like buy all this like really automated, amazing equipment. I build this cool facility and freaking COVID hits.
Yeah,
Who wants to go to a tap room and get a beer crowded
right.
with a bunch of people right now? So yeah, I had to adjust that business model. So I shifted my focus to outdoor seating. I shifted my focus to, maybe takeout and delivery. Yeah, I mean, I got screwed, man. I like trying to open a brewery right in the middle of this. It's been not good, dude. Not good at all. Like bad.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. I mean, I can't imagine because I've followed your journey obviously, and stay connected with you and see what you guys are building and putting together, and the place coming together and the custom parts and like, I see the investment,
Oh yeah.
the financial investment, the time commitment, the mental and emotional energy. I see the investment, and then you have outside circumstances beyond your control. It's like, damn, like,
Yeah,
but you pivot,
I got
right?
zero revenue right now. Zero revenue. And it's funny because people are like, "Oh, you're going overboard, and you're making the place amazing, or you're doing all this custom stuff." And I'm like, if I didn't have any goddamn money, I would have borrowed the money to do it this way because I'm not only doing it one way. It's gonna be the best that I could possibly think about every detail in my mind. So I have a little bit of an argument sometimes with people. I go, "Oh, well, you can afford that." Yeah, I mean, I've had some success, and I did work at a corporation, a startup for 21 years. So yeah, I have a bank account that I can write some checks for some things. I would have begged, borrowed, and I would have borrowed all that money to do it this way because this is the way to be successful.
Right. Yeah, but see, this goes back to what we were saying earlier when people discount it. And that's what they're doing when they say, "Well, yeah, you have a bank account. You were a co-founder of Under Armour. You have this. Dude, I built that too. Like you sacrificed. I know your
Oh yeah,
story.
we
Like
we lost $17,000 the first year we were in business.
that it's not like somebody gave that to you. This is the thing you talk about Cam because I know you're close friends with Cam is like his must be nice thing, right? Like, oh, it must be nice. Well, it's nice now, but it wasn't nice for 2 decades while I was grinding my ass off trying to make this work, neglecting my family, not being present and available as much as I wanted to be. It wasn't nice then. It's sure nice now, but I had to work through that.
Besides his family, and I'll make this statement, and I know there's some people in his life that I'm not close with. Besides his family, um, because we signed him early on at Under Armour, and he's the longest Under Armour athlete still on the books today. I know his struggle better than anybody,
Yeah.
and I wasn't that nice to Cam when we first had him. Like I was the corporate executive, not really giving a shit about this little dumbass bow hunter who thinks he's going to change the world by running.
Mm.
Like, like when we signed Cam back in the day, there was other personalities that were bigger. Real Tree Road Trips at the time was huge,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so, like, so I was part of his oppression. I don't think people understand that about Cam and I's relationship.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I was his fucking oppressor. He wanted more sponsorship, and he wanted to be in the ads, and he wanted to tell his story bigger, and he wanted to be, make new products with us and this, and he just had this appetite to like win. And we were like, nah, we're going this direction.
Hmm.
And he loved it. He was like,
I
all right, I'm going to grind harder. And look where we are now. I mean, he's probably the biggest, if
the
not one of the
biggest,
biggest hunting personality. Surely the biggest beast of a hunter.
no doubt,
Um,
no doubt.
and yeah, and then you know all his connections now and what he's doing and just yeah. But I don't think people understand. I was his oppressor. I was the corporate douchebag believing in his story. Of course,
Yeah,
over time, it was
but
hard
do you
not
think
to.
you
I started to hunt with him. I started to
right
know who he was.
get to know him? Do you
Yeah.
think you were the oppressor? Like, is that the right word, or is it just that
In
it
his
didn't
mind, it
align as
was.
much? Yeah, I'm sure in his mind, for sure.
Oh fuck yeah! In his mind, but see,
That's interesting.
that's the greatness about him. Was I really his oppressor? No, I was just some dingleberry businessman trying to
Yeah,
make the best decisions, and I wasn't that connected to
of
the hunting
course.
world. So, but in his mind, he was like, I was 100% the oppression of him and his story. So
Hmm.
to be oppressed means you must fight to get out.
Or give in or surrender. Like those are the only two
Surrender.
choices.
No, yeah, you can definitely surrender. That's an option.
You know, it's interesting. So I think I want to say at this point we're probably close to 300 podcast interviews and probably 600 or 700 total podcasts at this point.
That's rad. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's crazy to think about. But I'll tell you one. There's a lot of factors, but I'll tell you one factor that runs through every single successful person that I've talked with, whether it's you, Cam, Jocko, Goggins, like the best of the best, the elite. It seems to me that they all have a chip on their shoulder. And not in like a negative, destructive way, but just enough to give them an edge and a competitive advantage that comes with it.
Yeah, right. So if we're a product of our environment, I would say that if you look back to everybody's childhood, you're going to find some common denominators.
Hmm.
I do not believe that chip you're describing as a DNA that's placed in us, passed from DNA. The DNA is the size of my fingernails and my shoe size and my hair color and the way my spine is shaped, my muscle structure. That's DNA. The brain is a learning, absorbing energy of synapses that it recreates itself over and over through experiences and knowledge and through pain and suffering and joy and desire. And the brain, some people's brain access whole other regions. Some people learn to access multiple regions through teaching themselves. Some people are born with disabilities and access things that we could never get because, so I believe that's a product of, and if you did a book or a documentary on your top 5 podcast guys, Jocko, Goggins, Cam, Rogan, maybe he hasn't been on the cast, but you know what I'm saying.
Not yet.
And a couple other people. But you would find something in their childhood through the product of their environment that helped create that chip that now they push to the top, right? The chip was created somewhere and it was their ability to let it rise to the top and use it in a positive way.
Embrace it in a way, right? Rather than reject it. So let's say that it's not your DNA. It's just you're a product of your experiences, to circle back to how we started. So then what is it that separates those people who go through challenging and sometimes horrific situations? What is the difference between those who rise up and use the chip as fuel to improve and those who surrender?
That's a brilliant question, my friend. A brilliant question. I think sometimes they see it in someone else. So not only did they experience something, but they saw someone else rise. A coach, a mentor, a friend, a brother, another Navy SEAL next to me. They see it, the eye in someone else. Sometimes they had to do it themselves. Sometimes it literally is they have no other fucking option, right? Sometimes they actually didn't choose that option and they fucked their life up.
Mm-hmm.
And now that crystallizes pain and discomfort that they never want to go back to. So they choose the hard one again. Remember when I didn't choose the hard one? Look where that fucking got me. So I think it's a myriad of other people's experiences that you're close in contact with. You know, I wouldn't say television, but some people can get it from other icons like Jordan or things like that. And that happens. I think that's rare. I think it's usually someone in your close relationship. Or there's an experience that's so meaningful to you and you either failed or you did not, you failed or you succeeded. So I believe it's this myriad of choices and experiences. I want to say like from the age 7 to 15, and I've read a lot about that, the male brain can continue to develop all the way into its early 20s. Female brains are usually a little earlier. And I think that's, again, DNA with just the way women are built.
Right.
And you see a lot of young girls that are athletic and smart at a young age, and because they're just maturing faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those critical years of 7 to 13, something has to happen. If you just live in suburbia and you just go to school and you just have great shit and eat fruit roll-ups and like it's kind of nice and like your dad's this and your dad's mine, so yeah, well, you have a golden retriever. It's like, I don't know, man. It ain't fucking good. It's not going to work out for you. So you better go create something, or your parents better recognize that they better put your shit in some uncomfortable spots. I mean, let's talk about my kids. My kids are going to be the son of one of the co-founders of Under Armour. How the fuck is that going to help them be hard?
Right.
That is
not
100% the opposite.
Yeah, man. Did I lose you, Kip? Oh no, you're there. Sorry.
No, you didn't lose me. My kids are gonna get there. I'm getting ready to speed dial my son and be like, "Are you doing push-ups?"
I think about that a lot because I think about my kids. You know, like they're growing up in a better economic situation than I grew up in.
Sure, 100%.
And I wasn't. And look, my life as a kid wasn't bad. I'm not saying that, but
mine wasn't.
Economically, it wasn't to the degree that I am. And I'm better off for it. As an adult, I'm better off for it because of that situation. So I've thought about this a lot with my kids. It's like, all right, am I making things too easy on them? Which feels really good, by the way, because it's like, cool, I get to provide and give them a better life than I had maybe potentially. But at the same time, like, I might be hamstringing them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so I have this really old doctor. He's a pediatrician. He's like 86 years old, and he's our pediatrician for my two boys. And he gave me this analogy of how many viruses and sicknesses they get before the age of 6 is an indication on their immunity system when they're an adult and how well they'll fight off things.
Interesting.
So he was an old school doctor. He wouldn't give you antibiotics. He would be like, nah, let's see how it goes. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. The more you provide comfort and less stress, the worse they will be able to deal with it later in life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a learned skill, man. It's a skill like woodwork. Like, I can't make cabinets because I've never spent time making cabinets.
Right, and that's the only thing that it requires is you spending time doing it.
So you got to spend time being stressed at a young age.
Yeah.
And so that's where love and compassion can come in a very interesting and odd way, which is to push people past their comfort zone. But when they fail, you're there to love and be compassionate. But you 100% want them to fail.
That is a really interesting perspective because I think most people equate let me make your life easier as love, right? That's what they think love is. I'm going to make you comfortable. I want you to be happy. I want
That's not
everything
love.
to be okay. No, exactly. But I think that's what people interpret it as.
No, I think love is a very active and very disciplined act that has a lot of struggle in it,
Hmm.
you know. But
Well,
for
and it's
kids
painful for
specifically,
you too, right? Like when I
oh
love my
yeah,
kids and I let them experience hardship, love isn't like bliss. It's actually painful for me as a father because if I'm exposing them to even something as simple as going to football practice when they don't have to, I'm like, ah, man, like I don't. That's uncomfortable for me. So love is not supposed to be bliss. It's got some pain rooted in it and some sacrifice.
I mean,
Your own
what
feelings,
doesn't
your own
it?
emotions.
And so you go back to where we started this conversation on all those people that you look up to or have been on your podcast that you see these similarities. I I'm not an expert. I'm not a child psychologist. I'm not much. Actually, I'm a jack of a lot of things. Um, but the commonality to me is so crystal clear of their childhood. And I say that because I have young boys. I say that because I'm not a child anymore. And so you have to like really like ask yourself, where did some of this come from? Like I'm a big, I like to like immerse myself in things when I get involved in something. And if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be involved in yourself, if you're going to manage yourself, back to this management, then you better ask yourself, where does some of those good things of your personality come from? Where do some of those bad things come from? I mean, one of the bad things for me coming out of my childhood is like, yeah, I moved a lot. I'm not really good at being staying connected with people.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that are like, you know, yeah, I was boys with Kip and we like, we played lacrosse and we were best buddies. And then like, he never talks to me anymore. He made some money at Under Armour. Like he doesn't fucking care about me.
Yeah, they misinterpret it.
Yeah. So there's bad stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about taking that and learning from it and growing from it, not just letting it happen and then it happen over and over and over again, like actually growing because of the negative ramifications that come from it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Pavlov's dog, right? Positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is really, really good if it's coupled with a struggle or a sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree because I think what you're touching on right now is this whole like, well, here's a prime example, the body positive movement, where it's like you're just supposed to be blissfully happy with yourself because you didn't do anything in life and you're 40 pounds overweight and you should be excited and happy and satisfied with who you are. I'm like, what kind of nonsense is that? But that is the lesson that's being taught. To just
Is
be
that an
satisfied
actual,
with who you are.
is,
Yes.
is that an actual thing?
That's an actual thing. That's no
That's
joke.
already,
Dude, it's called the body positive movement. Think about the dad bod, right? Like you've heard the dad bod. Everybody's, oh, the dad bod. It's like, you shouldn't be happy with that. That's not a good thing. But this is what we do. We embrace, I was going to say mediocrity, but it's even less than mediocrity.
it's so foreign to me. I don't even understand it.
That's good. That's a good thing.
I
I hope that nobody listening or everybody listening to this doesn't understand that and they cannot connect and resonate with that. It's disturbing, man. It really is.
It's funny is I got some unhealthy lifestyle when I was traveling around the world with Under Armour and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was stressed and a little bit overweight and I was definitely not fit. I mean, if I had to like go run a half marathon or a marathon, I would have failed. If I would have just had to do like a regular CrossFit workout, I wouldn't have been able to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So you get there through, I just didn't prioritize it because I prioritized always being in the Under Armour mentality, which was business oriented, not personal health oriented. And I learned later in life that I failed at some of the things I was doing at Under Armour because I wasn't optimal. There's a direct correlation between my physical and mental health and some of the bad business decisions, personnel decisions, personal decisions that I made because I was not sharp. Oh yeah. I mean, millions of dollars, people I had to hire, products I had to flush down the toilet because they were bad quality, personal relationships gone because my mental and physical health was not where it needed to be. So
that's interesting.
You want
Yeah.
to be great at business? Be fucking healthy. It's the number one correlated to top CEOs for the longevity in their job. Most CEOs bounce around 3 years here, 4 years here, 5 years here. They have high stress, bad health, blah, 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 blah. The ones that stay at companies for 10 and 15 years and make changes to industry, they're healthy.
Yeah, that's an interesting correlation. I mean, you could definitely see how that would not only be true, but you could see how it very easily fall by the wayside because you don't think it's impacting you. In fact, it's counterintuitive. You think that if you take time off for a hunt or take time off every morning to go work out and not be in the office an hour earlier, that you're neglecting your work and you're undermining your work efforts. You're undermining it by not doing it.
And I'm sure there's someone you can have on the podcast that knows the science behind it, but the endorphins, the blood flow, all those things that are created in that moment of physical and mental activity stimulate. I'm a pretty creative person. You know, when I think about Kip and if I saw a picture of myself, I would look at myself, I would say artist. Like that's how I think of myself. I look at myself as an artist. I just don't have a typical canvas. I don't make pottery. I don't like paint. So I think, you know, you can't be optimal and be suboptimal on mental and physical health. I can't be the best artist I can if I'm unhealthy mentally and physically.
Well, and this is what I tell guys all the time is like, I think you can be a good man, which has more to do with morality, but I think you can be a good man and be out of shape. I think that's true. But I don't think that you can be good at being a man, or at least optimal as a father, a husband, a leader in your community, a business owner, if you're not in shape. And people say, well, you know, how could you say that? Because it's true. Like, I know that when I was 50 pounds overweight, I was not as good of a husband and a father and leader in my community as I am now. And I still have room to go. But if you think that you can optimize other facets of your life when your health is not in check, or you know your business is not dialed in, but you think your relationship is going to be, like, that's not how this works. You got to be dialed in across the board.
So rewind to early childhood experiences that people grow up with parents, close family, and they don't see physical activity as the nutrition for life. It's not imprinted in them. My dad and mom, I'm named after an Olympic marathon runner, Kip Fulks, the 1970 Olympics. My mom was a marathon runner. My dad was a marathon runner. My dad was a hardcore, Marine. Obviously, physical fitness is the top. And he's 75, 76, and my dad is in great shape. And so that imprint early in life, childhood development, to see people close to you, people you look up to, people that struggle, people that love you, and see something. I mean, I remember being in Bermuda and watching my mom run the Bermudian Marathon, and she barely made it. It was one of the hottest days for the Bermudian Marathon, and she barely made it across the finish line. And my mom ran marathons. I mean, she was a good runner. She struggled on this one, and she I was sad. I didn't understand it. That childhood imprint, I was in second grade.
6, 7 years old. And you remember that, nearly 40 years later.
That's not just like, my mom's on the elliptical. She ran a marathon and she looked like shit. And she finished it. And to see the jubilation and people come together and then see her recover and then see her do another one.
Yes.
As a young man, your mom, bam, dude, physical fitness in my life forever. Like, that seems like a positive way to live. Okay, so let's rewind. You didn't have that. Your dad's overweight. Your mom struggles with depression and weight. There's no physical fitness in the house. There's no personal gyms. There's no community sisters, hikes, camps, sports. And there's like, hey, let's describe these that exist. I'm not making this shit up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what are you like when you're 40 years old?
Yeah, you're going to be the same.
I don't know. You may be physically fit and amazing because it had a negative impact on you. But my point is, it's gonna have a impact somehow.
Right. Right.
You know, somehow.
Everything's gonna. It's funny when people say, you know, I'm not influenced by certain things, right? Like I'm not influenced by the people around me, or I'm not influenced by that.
Right.
Or it's like, dude, I mean, well, you can take how much you guys spend at Under Armour on advertisements to get somebody's eyeballs for 30 seconds. And think about how much a company like yours was willing to invest in that. And you're telling me that these people who invest millions upon millions of dollars to get 30 seconds of your attention don't understand that any little input that goes into your brain is going to influence your purchasing decisions, your lifestyle decisions, your behaviors.
I mean,
your thoughts.
unless you're a Buddhist monk, I mean, come on, man, we're human.
Yeah, but no, look, Buddhist monks, who do they spend time with? Other Buddhist monks, so they stay on track.
Yeah, I hear you. They're not hanging out with hookers in Vegas.
Nah, not, and they won't be a Buddhist monk for long if that were the case.
Yeah, I think the product of the environment. So let's talk about Order of Man, because I'm super proud of what you've done.
Thank you, man.
I'm impressed with the discipline and dedication to continue to evolve it as you find roadblocks and continue to overcome things and refine what you want. But you're creating an influencer model by getting like-minded people to have influence on each other.
And me, I need it too. I'm like, I need good guys around me because I will very easily fall off a track and do all kinds of shit to my life that I know is not conducive to what I want to create. So I need that in my own life.
I'm the same way, dude. Why do you think I have like 3 friends? I have a buddy named Mark Fry. I got Cam. I got my brother. I got 3 people in my life, 3 men I call friends in my life. If someone else is listening to this and they think they're like my best friend, sorry, newsflash, you're not. Because the standard for me is pretty high. They're either like blood or badass.
Mm-hmm.
My brother's a badass, so I'll give him credit, but he's blood first before badass.
He's both. He checks both boxes.
I self-select, man. Like I self-select who I'm around. To the most severe way a human being could self-select. I mean, I'm friends with Pete. I selected Pete. I select with Bert Soren at Sornex. Like, you know, those guys are friends, of course. You know, they're not best friends, but they're good buddies, and I respect them. But I mean, I'm self-select hard because I know the influence it has on me. I'm selfish.
Yeah, but you can also serve people that way too. So again, this comes back to the thing that we don't make decisions in a vacuum. People look at selfishness to some degree and they think it's negative. It's like, dude, if you become the best you possible, then what are you unlocking in other people? Like if you weren't quote unquote selfish, would you be able to lead Under Armour where it was? Would you have been able to start the brewery and invest in that and hire people and influence the people who are around you? The answer is no, of course not. So even selfishness, within moderation, right? We talked about that, serves other people. It can serve other people.
So I've been blessed to be able to have a network of people to come across, and so have you. And you mentioned a few of these amazing people you've come across. And so like, how do I back away from this conversation and think, and no disrespect, no judgment, but you know, I was an executive at a fast growth, high paced company. Let's just call it what it was. And now I'm starting something new and amazing, and it's going to be fun. You know, I'm not working at a Ford dealership in Wausau, Wisconsin as the lead mechanic. And I work 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me. Okay. So how do I back away from this conversation, and how do I connect with someone like that? Because I know their life and the factors in their life are much different than the factors in my life. And I thought about that a lot because I look at myself as a working man. I don't have a lot of good feelings of my success. I have a lot of negative feelings about my success. I don't feel validated through my success. I don't like it. I'd like to give it all away. And so I'm trying to constantly figure out how I connect with that person. And the only way I can connect with that head mechanic in Wausau, Wisconsin at the Ford dealership is show them that I'll grind the fuck out of anything.
And you can do that wherever you are.
You want to work out? I'll work out. You want to hunt? I'll fucking kill shit. You want to drag out animals? You need me to help dig a ditch in your yard? What do you need to do? Change out your irrigation system? Yeah, I'll do that. What do you want me to do? String 17,000 plants by hand? Sure, I'll do that too. What do you want, man? How can I connect with you? That's the only way, dude. That is the only way that my circumstance and his circumstance can come together in an equal mentality of discipline, grit, sweat, blood, as if I'm willing to dig a ditch in his yard. I'm willing to help him drag out a buck I didn't kill. Go on the weekend and help him put 10 tree stands up. Like, I got to grind it out, dude. It's the only way I can connect with him. And I can't tell you, and if there's anybody taking away from anything from this podcast, one, about who you are, about who I am, I believe that's what you and I are trying to do, is trying to connect with people on that level. Do we always do it right? No. Are we always successful in our, kind of way of going about it? Do we get dragged one way or the other occasionally? Yeah, I mean, we do. Let's just call it. We're not perfect.
Of course. Right.
But I think that's what it is, man. I think that's the common denominator. It's like, oh, I know Kip. Yeah, I asked him if he could come over and help me do this thing, and, he kind of blew me off. But this is not going to work.
Yeah, you got to be there. You got to be present. You got to be available. And it's that work and just being supportive and being there for people that really connects and binds people, I think, together.
And I think it's through freaking strife.
Yeah, well, I think especially for men. I don't think it's exclusive to men, but I do think it's especially for men is that we operate best when there's some sort of an enemy, right? There's some sort of hurdle like you were talking about earlier, or the wall. Like, let's do this together, right? There's got to be contention. There has to be. Otherwise, it's like, why are we doing this? Why are we bonded together?
I think it's cave mentality, man, because I don't think you could have lived 10,000 years ago if you didn't have a group of dudes with spears that you would sleep in a warm cave and go out at night and fucking hunt and kill and come back and eat and survive the next day to do it all again. Because when you went out and did it by yourself, you died.
Yeah, you would be dead. Exactly.
You'd be dead. You'd be dead. So the way to connect with people is to get sweaty, down, dirty, beaten, crushed, and then make it. I mean, yeah, if you all die, you die, and you pick the bad activity, And, I hope people don't take it that extreme, but I think you gotta bleed, dude.
I also think there's a measurement of testing other men in that capacity too, right? So,
are they going to be? Can they do that? Are they strong enough to have my back?
And that's right. Is this person capable of standing with me in a dire situation? And if he's not willing to get bloody, sweaty, dirty, then I know that he's going to bitch out when shit really hits the fan for us.
So I made the knives, right?
Yes.
I made the knives. I always give a gift to everybody I hunt with. And so I made those knives, and they're the best. They're freaking badass.
Unbelievable.
And I didn't pay attention. I was sitting on the ground blind with Cam and Johnny Rivets up in
Edmonton.
North of Edmonton, spring bear hunting. And I popped my knife into my holder. I was showing Cam or someone. I was showing my knife to Johnny, and I cut myself putting it back in its sheath. And when I say cut myself, I cut it right down to the artery on my finger, and it just started gushing.
Oh, I think I saw that.
it just started gushing. And I looked down and I go, that's not a good cut. And you know what I did? I didn't make a big deal about it at all. I hunted the whole time, gushing blood, wrapped. We put dirty shit on it, taped it up. Cam said I didn't need any stitches. I waited until 1 o'clock that night, until everything was done. We had cleaned the bear that was killed. We had eaten. We were all just hanging out. And I drove myself 2 hours with Jen Rivets to an emergency room and got stitches because I knew it needed stitches.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have acted like that if I wasn't sitting in the ground blind with Cam.
Right, exactly.
I would be like, oh, fuck, I gotta go.
I'm gonna die.
Go, man. Like, oh, dude, this is not good. This is so not good. Like, I can't believe I just did that. I was just like, yeah, that's all right. It's a cut. Yeah, we'll just keep on. I'll just tape it up. We'll deal with it later.
Yeah.
It's a test.
Well, and having the right people around you will I'll say it this way. Depending on who is around you, will either lift you or pull you back. It'll either increase and improve your performance or it will hinder it. And it's all about who's around you.
Yeah. So you're a product of your environment.
Yeah.
So all these people that are listening, you have to have a very, very disciplined approach to who you let in your inner circle, because they're going to have an effect on you. So you have that one friend from high school. He drinks too much. He doesn't work out. Not great with his kids. He's kind of a slacker at work. Why are you hanging out with him, man?
Yeah.
Why is he even in your circle?
Because loyalty, man. That's why. It's like
That's not loyalty.
That's what people think. We went through some hard times, or I've known him forever, and so now I owe him everything. That's what people think. And you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting him too by letting him act like that, by not allowing him to experience the consequences for the dumb decisions he's making. You're not serving anybody.
It's a hard one, man. I think that I can come off a little archaic, but I can't be around people like that.
I think sometimes if I, just speak freely about it, I think sometimes it could be interpreted as cold, right? You come across as cold or calloused, but knowing you, I know that that's not the case. I know that you think deeply about these things. I know how important it is to you, and I know there's a purpose behind it. It's not some flippant attitude of I'm better than other people. There's purpose. There's intentionality behind it. This is why I do these things. And most people don't have the luxury of seeing that. And so they misinterpret it as something negative when in fact it's not.
And I know there's things in those people's lives that maybe are blockers or obstacles that they can't break through. And I know they can break through because the human spirit can break through anything. And so there's a part of me that's like, hey, Kip, you should be better at helping them unlock and helping them get past these obstacles. And that's the balance I play, I struggle sometimes helping people do that. I want to, I kind of want to see people help themselves first, and then I'll jump in. I'm just like that.
Well, I mean, think about, okay, so I think about my kids, they've got their bikes, right? And they're in training wheels when they're getting started. Like, think about if I never took the training wheels off their bike. Like, at some point, they're going to fall on the bike. Like, at some point, you got to take the training wheels, and they're going to fall, and they're going to fall on their elbow. They're going to scrape themselves up. Otherwise, they're going to be riding on their training wheels when they're 40 years old. And how stupid would that look? And how limiting would that be for them? And we do that. We do that to people.
It's hard, man, because it's like society. That's my point. It's the consumerism of comfort. I mean, and David Goggins, he's like, I don't know, like he might be sent by God, dude.
He's I'll tell you what,
he has messages so hardcore and so direct that you wonder where it comes from.
The interesting thing about him,
I'm not a big religious guy, and you know that, but support everybody that has religion in their life. But that one right there, like he may have been placed for one reason, because God thinks we're soft.
Yeah, and and wants to show you how soft you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you what, when I sat down with Goggins, which I think was a couple of years ago now, maybe a year and a half or so ago, I had the opportunity to actually sit down face to face to do the interview. I'll tell you what, man, when I walked into his room, it was palpable. Like, it wasn't a show. Like, I walked in, I was like, whoa. And he was down to earth. He was gracious. He invited me to his hotel room. What's that?
So what is that? That's aura, that's energy, that's spirituality of another level, that's connectivity, that's force, that's gravity. I mean, I can go on and on. That's some people, that's chakra. Like,
you know what I think it is? I'll tell you what I think it is. Let me tell you what I think it's not first, and I'll tell you what I think. It's not false bravado. It's not arrogance. It's none of that, which some people will interpret it as that. It's supreme confidence by aligning his words with his actions and beliefs. That's what it is. His words and actions are so aligned his thoughts and words are so aligned with his actions that you can feel the congruency between it. That to me is what it is. I spent a lot of time thinking about that because I'm like, what is it about this guy? He's living it. That's what it is. And when you're around Cam and you're around Jocko and you're around all of these guys, that's what it is. It's supreme confidence that they have earned through aligning their thoughts and words with their actions.
I think that's well said.
All right, brother. Let's wrap things up, man. I want to tell you, I really appreciate you. I'm glad that we're connected. I was going to say friends, but I wasn't included on that list, so I'll just say I'm glad we're connected.
I said best friends.
That is true. Fair enough. No, I am glad we're connected, man. I know we've known each other for a couple of years now, and we've had the opportunity to go on a couple of hunts together and have conversations. You've been a big help for me directly and indirectly, and I really appreciate you for that, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I always say, man, like I'm drawn to what you're doing because you're creating something, you're co-creating with all these people that are involved in Order of the Man. And it's really special that you decided to do something. You know, I know you were like a financial planner or something before. Like, you had no skills to do what you're doing now. And so to me, that's where you earn the stripes for me, because that to me is what it's about. So I'm proud of you too, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Peace. Have everybody, hope the podcast well. Order Man hats are badass. I wish I had one. I have a big truck hat.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm like, didn't I get, because I thought I gave you a hat one time. You're like, I got enough hat, but it was a shirt, right? You're like, I got enough shirts.
Dude, I'm bald, man. I need hats.
All right, brother. I'm going to send you some hats. You got some good looking hats, but we'll get you connected.
Yeah. All right, man. I love you.
All right. Talk soon, man.
See you, Ryan.